All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Rachaha Kodash. Double honors to head apostle Nettles, a great millstone who rule well and teach well. This is the brother Mattathiah from the GMS Virginia camp coming to you through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Yahweh being a true, holy, powerful name of the Heavenly Father. Yahweh Shai being a true, holy, powerful name of his only begotten Son, whom this world ignorantly calls Jesus in Christ. Bahashem is in the name, and Lord willing, this will be edifying information / lesson. And the first video clip I want to touch on is from CBS News entitled Two Cases of H Virus Confirmed as Cruise Ship Passengers Disembark. And I'm going to play a portion of this news report, and this is fair use, fair use.
There appear to be new hantavirus cases this morning. 2 of them confirmed, 1 more symptomatic, all connected with the outbreak aboard that cruise ship in the Atlantic. A French passenger developing symptoms on her repatriation flight from Spain's Canary Islands. She has now tested positive, and French officials say she was among 5 passengers brought home yesterday. They've all been placed into strict isolation. Meanwhile, U.S. health officials say an American passenger is also now tested positive, while there is a third one showing symptoms. They were among the 17 Americans returned to the United States yesterday. The MV Hondius now docked in Tenerife, Spain. Briar Stewart is right there with the latest. And Briar, with at least 2 new cases, it would appear this outbreak is far from over.
Yeah, and I would say that these new cases were not unexpected, and that's because hantavirus has a long incubation period. It can be up to several weeks. But obviously the timing of this, I mean, the French national started reporting symptoms on the flight back to France yesterday afternoon. French health officials say that her condition is now deteriorating and that they've identified 22 contacts, calling them contact cases. So these aren't cases of hantavirus.
But so you're seeing the spread of these various different cases all across the globe. All right. And you heard what, years ago, you heard what Bill Gates said concerning the C19, and speaking about the future virus after the C19, that it was going to be a whole lot worse than the current virus at that time period. Okay. And that preparations need to be made. And we know Esau Edom is facilitating these various different things that you see happening on the earth: viruses, disease, okay, chemicals. We understand that the wicked is in rulership, the wicked is in power, and he's doing wickedness. Okay, that's what he's orchestrated. And like that individual said, this is far from over. And I have to agree. I see in the near future lockdowns, restrictions. What do you see in your day-to-day lives, your day-to-day activities at the job? Hey, people are putting their masks back on. All right. There's already been reports of, they're trying to create, or something's in the works for, these V's to be issued out again. Okay. And we'll see how that works. We'll see how that plays out. All right. Because I think Esau is going to get more of a kickback than he did the first go around. All right. But I think Esau has something to go along with what we see playing out with this H virus. Okay.
People that have been, I guess, in contact that they need to now trace. And in terms of the Americans, of the 17, there's 1 positive hantavirus case and another individual showing symptoms. You can imagine that person was certain.
And this is the same playbook. All right. Esau is using the same playbook from 5-6 years ago. We see this almost exact same situation with these cruise ships, with these passenger boats being quarantined, being locked down with virus outbreak, contact tracing, quarantines. It's the same go around.
certainly be closely tested and monitored. And in terms of the Americans, they're going back to 2 different facilities in the U.S. now to quarantine. So let's talk about the ship. It's been refueled this morning. It's going to be reprovisioned.
Yeah, and this go around, these lockdowns are going to be hella more restrictive. All right, you know, 6 feet, wear your mask. Uh, can't go to this established. Hey, that's going to be child's play compared to what they're about to roll out. All right, they're about to roll out heavy, heavy, heavy restrictions. Okay, detainments, which ultimately all this is going to lead to the MOTB. Real quick, let's go over to the book of Second Ezra, the 16th chapter. And I'm gonna play another video. This is Second Ezra 16:1. It says, "Woe be unto thee, Babylon and Asia! Woe be unto thee, Egypt and Syria! Gird up yourselves with cloths of sack and hair. Bewail your children and be sorry, for your destruction is at hand. A sword is set upon you, and who may turn it away? Fire is sent among you, and who may quench it? Plagues are sent unto you, and what is he that may drive them away?" And ultimately, we know Yahweh Bashem Yahushai is orchestrating these things that we're seeing play out on the earth. And he's using Esau Edom to do various different things on the earth. He's using the wicked. He's using those wicked elites who are in the position of power, pursuing to Job 9:24, right? To issue out various different things that will ultimately lead into lockdowns, restrictions, martial law, complete chaos, and Esau's pursuit of his new world order. All right, and we're looking for that major prophecy, which is the MOTB, that implantable device, which is gonna be issued out on high volume and soon made mandatory, because the MOT has to be in play before all out nuclear war. Let's skip down to verse 14. "Behold, the plagues are sent and shall not return again until they come upon the earth." So, you had these people when the C-19 was over with, they sat back, they kicked their feet up. They're like, "Oh, thank goodness, it's over with. We shouldn't, there's no way we're going to have to experience something like that again." Okay. People losing their jobs, people getting sick, people dying. All right. People in these hospitals, and everything's circling around that. Okay. Because, to leave sensitive words out of it, you had a whole lot of propaganda going on, 5-6 years ago, during the C-19, people popping out of body bags, arms and legs moving. You had people alive being declared deceased in the hospital. Yeah, you had a whole lot of things happening, man. Right? And now you have reports of, vials of this so-called virus, being dispersed throughout the United States, right? Remember the Ninja Turtles, the ooze? Well, you got Esau, dropping off viruses, throwing them out of the windows of planes. Broken vials are being photographed in various different fields. It says, "Behold, the plagues are sent and shall not return again until they come upon the earth." Let's play this one too.
At the Department of Health and Human Services, our approach is grounded in science, it's grounded in coordination, and it's grounded in transparency. This is a whole of government effort across federal, state, and local partners who are all working together to ensure the safety of the American people. And let me be clear, Let me be crystal clear. The risk of hantavirus to the general public remains very, very low. The Andes variant of this virus does not spread easily, and it requires prolonged close contact with someone who is already symptomatic.
Yeah, you see, people aren't captivated and easily persuaded as they were, during the first go round. Hey, you look at the comment board over here. You know, people. We was talking about this at camp. You're gonna see a heavy kickback from, you know, this second go around of lockdowns, restrictions, mask wearing, etc. So I see something else or multiple things being orchestrated to go along with this so-called virus, right?
Even so, we have taken this situation very seriously from the very start. We've taken it seriously across HHS and particularly through the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And I'm proud to see many of my U.S. Public Health Service officers have been actively engaged in the response. The CDC rapidly activated its Emergency Operations Center. It deployed medical teams to assess passengers and coordinated closely with international partners. They have notified state health departments. They have initiated monitoring of potentially exposed individuals, and they have issued clinical guidance through the Health Alert Network. And they have also brought together national partners through coordination calls. They've developed tools.
And a lot could come out of this. Esau could use this for, to further control, to seek to further control the narrative, to come against freedom of speech, right? He can use it to orchestrate certain mandates, restrictions, requirements. All right, a lot could come for this, which ultimately is just the stage is being set for the rollout of the MOTB. Okay, and this very well could be orchestrated to be used as a main uh, point, talking point, right? A main subject concerning that implantable device that these wicked elites wanted every single man, child, every single man and woman and child on the planet Earth. Let's skip down to verse 18. It says, the beginning of sorrows and great mournings. This is 2 Ezra 16 and 18. The beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, right? So what do you think is going to come from this second go around of quote unquote pandemic? When you look at the first go around, was there not great death? Whether it was from the actual virus or whether it was from something that came after that. You had professional athletes dropping down, falling out, dropping down dead in the middle of the game, live on television, about to catch a football and they just collapse and don't get back up, right? It says the beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars. All right, are we not at the beginning of wars? Amid these things that are happening concerning lockdowns, quarantines, disease, all right, you still have the upwards of the people. You still have wars taking place. Okay. It says, and the power shall stand in fear. The beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? And you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, y'all been warned. We told you America's not going to get built back better. It's never going to be great again. All right. This place is being systematically taken down by Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. All right. He's singing plagues upon this place. And you ain't going to be able to turn them back. Okay. It says, behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. But for all these things, they shall not turn from their wickedness. Yeah, Jake sees these various different things, disease, right? Great death, the wars, the rumors of wars, the signs that the scriptures said to look for concerning the return, all right, well, I should say concerning the end of Esau's rulership and the return of our Lord Yahweh Shai. But the majority of our people, they're not paying attention to the signs. They're ignoring the signs, and ultimately they've been blinded by Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. It says, but for all these things, they shall not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges. Yeah, Jake, he's too wrapped up with the distractions, what's going on in in hip hop, you know. a new show, the new movie. All right, all these various different things that Esau Edom has set up to distract you from the real issues that are going on in the earth. It says, "Behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon the earth that they shall think themselves to be in good case." See, Jake thinks they're in good case. They think they're good. They think they're all right. They think this is gonna be another. It's just gonna blow over, right? It says, "And even then shall evils grow upon the earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. For many of them that dwell upon the earth shall perish of famine." And you already see what's going on with these farms. Okay, these farmers are speaking out with uh, you know, the guidelines and the restrictions that and mandates that are set over them by the government. Okay, various different farms are exploding, burning down. Esau's polluting the land. So this famine that is about to take place, which we're right there at the door, right there at the doorstep of famine, man. You see these gas prices, you see everything going up, which is going to result in the gas going up is going to result in everything going up, okay, which is already happening, okay. But we're right there at the doorstep of a very high level shortage of food. It says, "For many of them that dwell upon the earth shall perish of famine, and the other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy." So you're going to have a large number of people that die from hunger. It says, "And the dead shall be cast out as dung, and there shall be no man to comfort them. For the earth shall be wasted, and the city shall be cast down." Let's go back and see what else popped up under this. Yeah, so this cruise ship was registered high risk. So apparently this cruise ship went out of the United States and then came back to the United States. So is hantavirus the next CVID? Doctors issue big warning. Let's play this.
You are on the front lines of battling the COVID pandemic. Why is this less of a threat?
Well, for several reasons, but I'm really glad that they're starting to molecularly test the patients. This is really important. It's only through seeing the virus through actual testing rather than waiting for symptoms that you can really understand what's going on. We know that people on the ship are at risk, and I remind people, both the crew and the passengers, and we owe them also testing. But we know that the US and others around the world have done a great job with containment. It is less easy to infect others, we believe, based on the data we've had to date with hantaviruses. And so there's not a threat to the general American public, but there is a threat to the people who got off the ship, to the people who are still on the ship, and to the people and to the crew.
This morning, we learned that a French woman who was a passenger on the ship has become the 7th confirmed case. Do you think we'll see more positive test results pop up in the coming days or weeks?
Well, we've already seen that. There's a couple reports of this virus being in Virginia and scattered through different parts of Babylon the Great. Okay, so we know how Esau operates. He says, "Oh, it's okay. It's not going to be like this the CVID. We're gonna contain it and do all these various different things, and then boom, it's a whole different scenario than what has been portrayed and depicted, you know, by the main platform, these news media outlets, which these wicked elites own and control. Okay.
Well, as you know, the test positives are 5 to 15 days before you develop symptoms. And so that's why we should be doing molecular tests. We shouldn't be waiting for symptoms. We learned that in COVID, during the Trump administration, we were doing 2.5 million tests a day, molecular tests. We really know how to do this. And the
Yeah, you very well could see forced tests now, right? If they suspect you to have it, they come to your door, they kick down the door, and they shackle you and take you to the hospital or take you to a facility under the umbrella of pandemic and disease, right? We think that you have this, so we got to do this and that, right? You have no rights. Or we have to implement something to control this widespread outbreak. We have to distill something in this system, okay, to keep people protected, to keep them healthy. And this is going to be forced upon the people. You heard what Bill Gates said years ago, all right? There's too many people on the earth. He also said that the next virus, right? Let's go ahead and let's pull that up. Matter of fact, I think they'll let me search that. He said the next virus is going to be a lot worse. Yeah, here it is right here. And there's multiple videos. This is how we prevent the next pandemic. The next outbreak, we're not ready. Bill Gates says the next COVID wave will get the attention this time. Okay. So this is it. We need to be prepared for the next pandemic. Bill Gates warns of next pandemic 5 years ago. All right. It said Bill Gates says we're absolutely not ready for next potential pandemic. That was a year ago. All right. I asked Bill Gates, what's the next crisis? Let's go ahead and play this one right here. And we'll get a couple scriptures and wrap it up.
In fact, the testing could have been ramped up very quickly in a few countries that have almost avoided the epidemic entirely, like Taiwan, New Zealand, Australia. They took their experience and actually prepared, and so they moved a lot faster. So we, we'll have to prepare for the next one. That, I'd say is will get attention this time.
Yeah, who says shit like that? And that just went over a lot of people's heads, right? When it was said 5, 6 years ago. And you see the smiles, a body language, it tells a lot. Okay. Talking about the next pandemic, and he's got a grin on his face and his wife has a grin on her face like that. Hey, it says a lot, man. Okay. Because we know that the majority of these diseases that are taking place and happening going back years and years and years were all orchestrated by Esau Edom.
Will get attention this time.
Right. And this very well could be it. This H virus, which we know this is going to ultimately lead to the MOTB. All right. The microchip being rolled out on a high volume, being persuaded to the masses of people, and the majority of the people are going to take it. And we're sitting back to wait to see how Esau is going to spin it. Esau can spin it under the pandemic and disease, health and safety, economics. Okay. He could do it in various different ways, in multiple ways, to persuade the masses into taking these implantable devices. Okay. But we're right there at the doorstep, and we keep telling you, Israelites, hey, it's high time to awake out of sleep. The majority of our people, they ain't listening, man. All right. They're not listening to the words of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai that are being spoken all over the four corners of the earth by his prophets, true prophets. All right. Giving you a warning. You got Jake that knows they're Israelites that are part of some of these other camps. They're not giving a proper warning. They're not giving a certain sound of that trumpet. They're telling you that, nah, man, you can take a micro C hip. There ain't nothing wrong with that. You can take a jab, right? You can take these various different things that Esau wants you to take. Well, let's see what their stance is this time. All right, let's see what their stance is this go around. Let's see what they're going to say concerning, if it leads to that, if the buildup reach that type of level concerning this H virus, right? Because you best believe we're going to see a whole nother round of these jabs, man. All right, whole nother round of lockdowns. Okay, whole nother round of restrictions and these various different things. And this is amid, high gas prices. This is amid war. So there's a lot more going on now in this possible quote unquote pandemic than there was during the C19. Let's get Romans chapter 13. This is Romans 13 and 11. It says that knowing the times, see, the majority of our people don't understand the times that we're living in. We're living in the end times. All right. We just read in 2nd Ezra 16th chapter concerning the plagues that are being set upon the earth by Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. It says, and that knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep. For now is our salvation nearer than when we believed. Right? Take your head, take your mind out of America, Babylon the Great, this society, this system. Okay? Stop trying to be accepted in this world. And it speaks about that in James, the 4th chapter. You trying to be accepted by Esau, Edom. You trying to go down to, the modern day Pharaoh, to the modern day Pharaoh for help, for instructions, for guidance, for aid. When times get tough, that's the first thing on your mind. That's the first person you run to is Esau, Edom. You made yourself an enemy to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. That's why the scripture says, the strength of Pharaoh shall be your confusion, right? Let's read that again and we'll wrap up. This is Romans 13 and 11. It says, and that knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than when we believed, right? We're at the end of Esau's rulership, and we're witnessing the downfall of Esau, Edom. And Lord willing, we're part of that elect number that can witness the final, okay, the finale of Esau, Edom's kingdom through the windows of those chariots, the so-called UFOs, the so-called UAPs, like the scripture speaks about, that destruction that's going to take place, which is going to be a very, very swift destruction of Babylon the Great, 60 minutes. And that's going to be witnessed by the elect of the nation of Israel through the windows of the chariots. Let's get that. Let's close out on that. That's what is that? That's, bear with me one moment. That's Isaiah 26. It's Isaiah 26 and 20 says, come, my people, enter thou into thy chambers and shut thy doors about thee. Hide thyself as it were for a little moment. Right? That swift, quick 60-minute destruction of Babylon the Great, which is America, until the indignation be overpassed. Okay? Lord willing, we're part of that elect number. We can be beamed up into those ships and witness the great destruction of Babylon the Great, the destruction of 2/3 of the nation of Israel. Witness these intercontinental ballistic missiles hit their mark, right? Lord willing, that was edifying. To the next time, shalom.